Hello, folks. You're all very welcome back to the Celtic Soul podcast. I'm Andrew Millen, your host, and it's been a while. I suppose the Fanzine or the podcast has been a bit sporadic with our travelling. Celtic home and away is what we do, and with Celtic playing on all fronts in Europe and domestically, we basically had 2 games a week. So we were travelling midweek and traveling at the weekend, so it's settled down a bit now. And then when the 2 games did stop, we had our big trip to Thailand to organise and execute, I suppose. We had an absolute ball of a time in Bangkok and Hua Hin, and we thank all the venues, O'Shea's and Father Ted's, and also everyone who travelled from around the globe, and to the local supporters club, Bangkok CSC and Hua Hin CSC. Thank you very much for the warm welcome and for looking after us over almost 2 weeks, including travel. It was absolutely brilliant. But we're back home now and travelling at the weekends because we've no more midweek games at the moment. But I think there is one after the split. So apart from that, but we should have a clean run during the week to get into the studio. So we're looking forward to recording a couple of podcasts. We've a few guests lined up. And today we start with, I suppose, an old catch-up with Matt McGlone from the Alternative View, just to get his take on all things Celtic at the moment. And as we head into the run-in to the end of the season, very disappointed. Everyone was very disappointed with the result against Rangers. We started very slow. We've all analysed, I suppose, in our own groups. But we got back into the game and then ultimately threw it away. So, yeah, very disappointing. But we did get back to winning ways, and we also got back to Glasgow after watching the game on the roof in O'Shea's in Bangkok. The result didn't go away, but what a night! We had a packed roof overlooking Bangkok. What a venue! Absolutely brilliant. But nothing beats paradise. And we were back on Saturday, and we were treated to a good performance. I thought we started a little slow. I thought Hearts were the quicker to start, and the young boy in nets done okay. Pulled off 3 good saves. Didn't really have much to do in the second half because once Celtic got ahead through the Maeda goal, it was one-way traffic. I thought Maeda was excellent again. 2 goals. Great ball in from McGregor and from Keown for the second goal. Keown, story of the first half of the season, but it's Maeda that's grabbing the headlines in the second part of the season. And Jota, who I thought had one of his quieter games, but still was on hand to convert the goal and do what he's paid for. So yeah, a good day Saturday. Got into McCool's before the game to see Nicky and Joe Miller from Not to View and all the crew, and it was great to catch up with them. It's been a while, and then I managed to get in after the game to watch the Rangers game, and had the bonus of the Broga lead singer Daniel doing an acoustic set as well. So we had a set from him while we had the Rangers game in the background. Big cheers went up when Dundee scored all 3 goals, but unfortunately, it was a hard luck story for them again, as it was against Celtic up there. On a cold night in Dens Park, when I stood probably in the worst position in the ground, restricted view in the corner of the stand. It was definitely the worst place I've stood in a long time. But Engels saved our blushes that night. But yeah, again, Dundee, down near the bottom of the table, but they have performances in them. So, but anyway, that's done and dusted. We look forward now to St Johnstone in Perth. They've given us a half-decent allocation, so a lot more fans will be able to travel to that one. I'm looking forward to that. Heading up on a supporters bus early in the morning, so I'll be getting over on Saturday for that one. So might get a few points in Glasgow on Saturday night, but it can't be a late one because we're on the road early the next morning. Big shout out to Tony, Eamon and Kieran Ratton, Sunderland boys. big Celtic fans and big Sunderland fans who have been great backers of the podcast and the fanzine since we started the podcast back in those dark days of COVID. So thanks to Tony and the boys once again for the support. And if you would like to support the podcast, you can sponsor an episode, or you can go on our online shop and buy some merch or buy the latest fanzine, which, by the way, was put on hold as well because of Thailand. Richie, our graphic designer, he's a virus, so that's kind of knocked it back a bit. But we are on course now to get it out for the Kilmarnock game. So that should be out next Saturday. And if you want a copy of that, we'll start putting up pre-sales on the website, CelticFanzine.com. And also on the website, you can get all our blogs, latest news, info on the fanzine, and you can visit our online shop where you can pick up, as I said, T-shirts, fanzine, subscriptions. And the best way to get the fanzine is to subscribe, and we'll throw in a free T-shirt. You can also follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms. And we are now on TikTok. So if you get over to TikTok, you'll find us on Celtic Fanzine. Is there anything else? Oh, yeah. Forget, I mentioned the Kilmarnock game there. We have our annual charity dinner in the number 10 hotel over the south side of Glasgow. If you want to attend, we have about 15 tickets left. Paul Sheridan will be providing the music before and after the dinner. And we also have a special guest, first time with Peter Grant. We did interview him in Cork last year, but we're delighted to have Peter as our special guest for this Kano fundraiser, which we do every year. Kano do some great work there, getting kids a lift over the turnstile and into football for free. And we're delighted to be working with them once again on this dinner. I'll be doing an interview with Peter, and then we'll be opening it up for a question and answers. And as anyone who's been to the number 10 before know how good the food is. So tickets are 45 quid for that. Table of 10 if you want. We've one table of 10 left. And if you want single tickets or a couple with your mates, we'll look after you with a smaller table. So folks, that's next Saturday, 7 p.m. kickoff after the Kilmarnock game, which is now a 12:30 kickoff. So that will give us a bit more time than usual to get from Paradise to the south side to get ourselves ready for that night. So looking forward to that. And then the big one then after, when all is done and dusted after the Scottish Cup and the SPFL trophy, which is destined now for Celtic Park. It's only a matter of time, and hopefully we can reach the final of the Scottish Cup and do another treble. Wouldn't that be great? And then after that, the celebrations will take us to Las Vegas for the North American Federations Convention, and we're really looking forward to that. It'll take a lot to live up to our little holiday in Thailand, but sure, we'll give it a lash in Vegas in the summer. I just spoke with Maeda there. 30 goals, folks, so far this season. Out on the wing, and now our central man since he stepped out of the shadows since Kyogo left. And could he join the 8 players who have scored 40 or more goals in a season? There's some greats in that list: Nicholas, McLeod, Dalglish, Lennox, McBride, McGrory, Henrik Larsson, and Lee Griffiths, the last one to do it. So maybe he could. And sure, who better to ask about Maeda and all things Celtic than our guest today. Folks, welcome Matt McGlone to the podcast. Matt McGlone, you're very welcome back to the Celtic Soul podcast. Matt Milish, and I think the first thing I want to talk about, Matt, is Maeda. So there's 3 M's.
Fantastic. I mean, have you ever seen a footballer like him with the energy and the speed? And this season he's really added his finish to it, because if anything Maeda lacked in his whole game up until this year was finishing, because he was too hurried. But now he's dynamite. There's no defence can handle him.
Yeah, Matt, and I'm working on the new issue of the fanzine, and he's on the cover. And I wrote a piece because when Maeda came, Kyogo was already there, and he had bedded in. He was scoring goals. He was a fan's favourite. Kyogo in front of the away fans always put out front, but the other players front and centre. You know, Paradise, Celtic Park, always in the corner in the standing section after the games. You know,
Yeah.
he'd have probably played a support actor's role maybe. Then we're all surprised when Kyogo goes, um, especially where he was going to. I know Ren have a lot of money, but a relegation battle, and I think the manager since moved on, hasn't worked out from that. But Maeda, as you said, like I felt Maeda he gave you 100% every time. But I agree with you. In front of goals, sometimes you just thought, just steady on, balls over the top wide. But he was getting into positions. So Kyogo moves on. We failed to bring a striker in the winter transfer window, and he's moved into the central role, which he plays for Japan anyway. And he is. Tony Wood to describe him is, if Kyun was the story of the first part of the season, Maeda is certainly the headline news now.
Yeah, well, it shows you a centre forward that we bought for £9 million either can't get a game. Generally starting because through the middle, it's the thing about Maeda is he's great down the wing as well. He terrorises fullbacks, and I'm sure Tavernier is happy that he's not up against him at the minute. But a centre forward can't get a game because Maeda is that good in the middle. But we miss him down the left-hand side because he's, he can't play in both positions. But Celtic have got that option of playing Maeda Ida through the middle and playing Maeda down the wing. But at the minute, it's Maeda through the middle, and it's working out fantastic. What is it over? Is it over 30 goals he scored?
30 goals, Matt, and could he join that famous 40? I think there's 8 players have scored 40 and 40 or more in a season, and like we've witnessed. So I've witnessed some of them. You may have witnessed all of them, but McGrory, because you've been going to Celtic Park longer than me. Lee Griffiths was the last one to do it, but Henrik Dalglish, Clare, McGrory, Lennox, McBride. It's some roll call.
Yeah, Charlie Nicholas as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So we've got 7 games left, 7 league games left. Hopefully 2 cup games, 9 games. He could do it. 9 games. If he plays all 9 games, it's just over a goal a game, and he's been doing that, pretty well recently. Yeah, looking good. Big disappointment the Rangers game, have to say. I'll have to sort my head out because I'm in a bad mood for days after it. Didn't even go out, the next day, or just I just felt in that game we weren't up for the match, and that kind of is what bothered me the most. That we didn't seem to have the attitude that they had for the game. We're a far better skillful team, but in those games they're different. They're not normal games. You have to be right up for it. It's 90 minutes of endeavour and dig, along with the skill that you have. And I just felt that for some reason we were slightly off it, and it kind of ran through the whole team. Apart from, Maeda played very well, and Naroki came in. I mean, he'd been in the wilderness for months, stepped in and never really put a foot wrong. So that was quite a nuisance, losing that game, particularly because they're making out Barry Ferguson's like Barry Ancelotti now, major technician. But we have to go there. The league will be won by the time we get there. The SFA will make sure of that when they arrange that fixture. They won't want us going to Ibrox win the league. Although that'd be fantastic.
Especially with fans back in.
You ever see a stadium empty that quick? But we have to forget that we're champions, and we still have something to prove. And we have to do that at Ibrox because we didn't play great in the cup final. Terrible game at New Year. They won it with a big punt up the park at the end of the game last time. the same way they won the Dundee game, kick out for the keeper, bouncing ball into the other opposition's half, and somebody gets on the end of it. But we have to make sure that it's not an end of season game for us, and there's lots to prove. You know, it's the biggest thing for Celtic fans to beat Rangers.
Yeah, and you mentioned Maeda had a good game against them. It was very disappointing, Matt. The whole episode. We were in Thailand on a rooftop in Bangkok and O'Shea. It's a fantastic venue overlooking the city. And Didier Gat was our guest for the game. You know, a man who knows a thing or two about, turning up against Rangers. Didier played in a fantastic team. But he said before the game he couldn't believe how confident the Celtic fans were that he'd met, because there was, the rooftop, there was probably over 200 on it. And he couldn't believe how confident everyone was. And he said if Celtic start the way they started in Ibrox, he says, and Rangers get a goal or two, we won't win this game. Obviously we fought back, and we celebrated, but in the end we got sucker punched. And it was a disappointment. It was a huge disappointment. But Matt, we were on our way down to Wahin to finish off the festival. So we celebrated St. Patrick's Day in the company of only Celtic fans. But you said you didn't go out. You're in the city. It means so much to the people in the city of Glasgow who have to walk with Rangers fans, socialise with Rangers fans, and so forth. So we were the lucky ones because, we analysed the game, but we could forget about it. It wasn't in our face. So, I think that's the biggest disappointment, Matt, is that, we are the better team, we have the better players, and we haven't turned up now for 180 minutes or over 180 minutes against them, both at Ibrox and in Celtic Park.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's got to be in the head. It's a psych. There's no doubt about it. For some reason, Celtic players haven't got it in their heads that this game means everything. Being 16 points ahead at the time, I know it's been a long, hard season for the players, and we've been playing lots of games, but so have they. I feel like after the Bayern game, we haven't really shown our best form. The players have to get it in their heads, and that's up to Brendan and the coaching team, that this game means everything to the supporters. Whether you're 13 points ahead or 16 points ahead, you've got to have the mentality that you're no points ahead or you're points behind to get out there and win that game, because it's not just another 3 points. It means a lot more than that. And that's what I think was missing in the last game, and maybe a game before it.
Yeah, and when you think back, Matt, when we went to Ibrox with, I suppose, like a makeshift defence, Scales was in. No one gave him a chance of being a first team player at the time. I think Welsh was in, and a couple of others, and they all performed that day. They performed really well that day and got the result. So is it a case of maybe shuffling the pack for these games because our best players on paper aren't doing it? And you spoke about Adam Maeda, 9 million. I would love to see him in Ibrox in the next game, because I would like to see Maeda out terrorising Tavernier again. Because I just feel that's I just think we should be bullying them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's, for me, it's all about the psyche. It's about mentality. I felt in the last game there, Kuhn got bullied, allowed himself to be bullied, and was taken off at half time. Players have to understand that it's not just all about being a good football player and playing for Celtic. And they probably think we did well in Europe, we'll be good against Rangers. But there's a different mentality required for this game altogether. We were like altar boys, and they came out like street neds. And, we were naive in quite a lot of the game. Again, you can be a great footballer, but you have to have a mentality that makes you up for that game. And that's what was missing.
Yeah, I suppose eyebrows raised all around as well, and indeed outside Scotland, because at Celtic Park we should be, we we should be the dominant force. And we have been, Matt, for so long. But like, it seems to be going back to, even when Rangers, had spent all the money and with tax dodging and bringing in the Laudrups and the Gascoignes and that. Even though on paper they had a better team, but Celtic went there and got results, and it was still that anything can happen in the Glasgow Derby, or the Old Firm as it was called back then. And do you think that's creeping back in now?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we weren't great in the cup final. We've lost twice since. The next game is everything to prove. Uh, you know, Brendan. I mean, you would think that the players were straight into an international break after the last game we lost. You would like to think they had them in the next day and went through the video and really made an impression. Of course, everybody left the stadium that day and didn't come back for a week or 10 days afterwards. But you would like to think that he's taken them into a room and played that video and started and stopped it and showed them every single thing that we didn't do right. You'd like to think that the players are angry and hurt. If I was a footballer, I'd be really hurt and I'd be dying. I'd be making sure I was extremely fit physically and mentally to play them the next time. I would take it as an offence that they beat us. And I think that's what the players have to do. And obviously that has to come from the coaching team. People talk, I read rubbish about Callum McGregor, and I'm disappointed. I see it from some Celtic fans saying he's not the player he was and he's lost a yard and he's this, that, the next thing. Let me tell you something. If you know anything about football, you know that Callum McGregor is a key part of that Celtic team. If you look at him when he came back in the weekend there, on Saturday, against Hearts, he was pointing. I remember watching him at one particular point at a free kick. He was organising everybody around him and beyond. And then seconds later, when the ball was going out, he was organising everybody for the shy. He's a total organiser of the game. He reads the game well. He's always there. He's a great carrier of the ball where he controls it and almost kind of the way Ken Dalglish used to do, kind of cover the ball, like you couldn't really get it off him. And he always does that pirouette in a space and looks for a man. Callum McGregor is a key part of this Celtic team. And I think missing him. Now, I know that people will say, well, he played in the previous two games and we didn't do very well. Yeah, I get that. But you're better off with Callum McGregor in the team than you are without it. Were disturbed all over the park. The team looked like they were uncertain in that match. Even the goalkeeper, Alistair Johnstone, I mean, he should have been substituted. I think he just was having, whatever the problem was, he wasn't playing well. Tony Ralston would have come on and give you a bit of endeavour. That's what they had. There were so many aspects of that game that, we maybe could have changed, didn't. And hopefully the players are angry and hopefully they're annoyed at themselves.
Yeah, Matt. I think 99% of the Celtic fans agree with you about Callum McGregor. I just think that there is, especially on the likes of Twitter or X as it's called now, I think people just like to shout and like to be heard when things don't go our way. But Callum McGregor's contribution to Celtic has been, immense over the years.
And it still is. It still is today.
I remember him as a young player going out to Notts County, coming back, and we played Borussia Mönchengladbach, and he ballooned one over the bar, and I remember coming out of the ground and I was going, fuck Callum McGregor, you know what I mean? Because it could have been a famous away win. I think we drew 2 each. But that's the last time I cursed McGregor. Yes, he had a bad game in Ibrox, as did everybody, but we certainly missed him. And you could, I was a bit alarmed, Matt, on Saturday how we started. I thought we started very slow, but in a positive sense, at least the young lad in nets got a feel. He made 2 or 3 good saves early on before Callum McGregor played that fantastic pass to the man of the moment, Maeda. And what a goal he scored, And then that eased the whole stadium and it eased the players. And then after that, the first half was a joy to watch.
Yeah, I think we had a wee bit of a slow start, but I think that once we get going, the game was won by half time, obviously. Um, we probably could have scored more in the second half. We kept at it. Hearts never really got out their half in the second half, so we nullified anything that they ever thought they could get a comeback with. So I felt we stuck with it the entire 90 minutes. I think maybe part of the problem is that when you're so far ahead in the league and you're so far ahead in a game, that your top performance level psychologically might drop off a bit. And I think that's what we're maybe suffering from a bit. I think on Saturday there we didn't show that. I felt that we showed, this game is as important as any other game, and it doesn't matter if we're 13 points ahead. We all know we're going to win the league. Everybody in Scotland knows we're going to win the league. So that doesn't kind of help when you need an edge. Yourself in life, you need an edge in a situation, whatever situation you get into, whether it's a meeting at work or whether you're under pressure to produce a job, you need an edge. And I feel maybe that's part of the problem, this season with us. I mean, I'm not complaining because we're on course for a treble. I mean, I was brought up in, between 1989 and 1995. We won a Scottish Cup. 18 trophies played for Scottish Cup. In the 95, Pierre Van Hooydonk at Hampden against Airdrie. So, here we are. It almost sounds like we're moaning and we're on course for a treble. So, I think what we're moaning at is getting beat by Rangers. I think that's what the problem is here. And we don't want that to spill into other performances and other achievements that we're going for. Another treble is wonderful, fantastic. We'll overtake them and all their shouting and bawling about the world's most successful club. Just wait to leapfrog another two there.
Yeah. Well, look. We know that there's going to be silverware in the cabinet this year, and there won't be across Ibrox, which is it's always a nice way to start the summer. But like you mentioned, like the '95 Cup final, there like it was a barren time. Tierney comes back into the fray next year. Dyed in the wool. We know we know Kieran's qualities. We know how attached he is to the club. Do you think maybe that there's not enough Kieran Tierney's in that dressing room when we play Rangers?
Well, I think what you're alluding to there is that they always thought you should have some Glasgow boys around, or Celtic fans that know the score. They don't really have that over at Ibrox. There's not many of them on the park. But they have it obviously in this backroom team they've brought in, one guy off a radio show, one guy spending his days in the golf course, and another guy off Radio Scotland or Sports Scene, and they've come in and I mean, I can't take them seriously, but they haven't beat us, so. But the Glasgow element, I think, has to be always there in those particular games. But maybe in other games, you don't need it so much. But in those particular games, you certainly do. But surely that's down to the coaching staff, if you don't have enough boys like that.
No, it's just when you mentioned Johnson had such a bad game. Ralston knows the story. He'll give you 100%. He may not be. He may not have all the qualities that Johnson has. And the reason why I hark back to '95 is because they were barren times, but you still had McStay, Tommy Bones, Peter Grant, Tosh McKinley. These are players that know exactly what it's like to lose against Rangers and to walk the walk where they have to live in the city and face Rangers fans. Whereas I think maybe the modern player might live outside the city, and after the game, he just switches off. It's not as it's not as I'm not saying important, but it just doesn't have that same.
Yeah, they don't get the connection.
Yeah,
Yeah, they don't get what it means to fans. Brendan said before the last game, doesn't matter how many points we're ahead here, we know what this fixture means to the fans to win it. It didn't happen. So, getting back to the 90s there, all the Celtic boys, local Celtic boys you're talking about, but a lot of them were good players and some of them were really good players. But we didn't have any money at that time. And, it was only a year after, when the takeover, March the 4th, 94. The club was getting revitalised. We spent a year at Hampden. There was a lot of upsets there. But, we didn't have money that we have now to go out and spend £9 and £11 million in players. So you can have all the Glasgow boys, but you still need, a fair bit of quality around you. I remember a goal, to tell you this story, actually, we were talking about around about then. It was 1998. The season Rangers were going for 10 in a row. You can imagine we're on the cusp of a treble here. Now we're talking back to Rangers winning 9 championships. Richard Gough scored at the Celtic end at Ibrox. I was at that game with the full Broomlin. And they ran away to the Govan stand going like that. 10, 10. And I always remembered that because, you always remember somebody trying to rub your nose in it. And I felt that that's what they were doing there. Now, God must have been on my side this day because this day happened unbelievable. Obviously, they never won the league that year. We won it under Wim. And therefore, the following year, we had the league championship trophy at Celtic Park. I was working at Celtic at the time. And one of the things we used to do was go around supporters clubs and speak to fans and take their questions and find out what their complaints are and what the fans think we can improve at the club. And Celtic had sent us down to South London to do a supporters do down in South London. And with the league championship trophy with us, and it was a big drum. It was the original one from the early 1891, I think it was. So it was in a big drum. And Celtic said, hey, don't leave the hotel at all. You have to look after that cup. You can't leave the trophy in the room and disappear in the afternoon and go for a walk or a coffee. You have to stay in the hotel. So we're in the hotel, me and another guy for Celtic who kind of spoke on behalf of the club, and I spoke as a fan. So we had 2 different dynamics going on at the question and answer nights. I thought, I'm not sitting in here all afternoon. The Celtic gig doesn't start till about 7:30. So I phoned up Crystal Palace. It was the nearest football ground to where we were, the hotel was. Phoned up Crystal Palace. And I said, my name is Matt McGlone and I work for Celtic. I've got the league championship trophy with us. Any chance we can come down and watch the game and you can look after the cup for us? Now, if you're the guy on the other end of the phone, you're going, who's McGlone? The guy's just phoned up random and said, I've got a league championship trophy from the Scottish champions with us. Can we let him into the ground and we'll look after the trophy for him? Anyway, unbelievable. As I said, God must be on my side this day. Unbelievably, he said, yeah, come down. As we walked in the front door, I wasn't even thinking. The game was between Wimbledon and Nottingham Forest, because Wimbledon's ground had closed down. They were ground sharing at Selhurst Park with Crystal Palace. So Crystal Palace weren't even playing. As I walked in the ground, I walked in the front door with this chaperone guy. I'm carrying the trophy in the big drum. And I just looked to the side, the right-hand side of the front door. There's a players' lounge, a big glass wall. And I saw Richard Gough standing there with a glass of orange juice in his hand. And I thought, I don't believe this. I don't believe this. So the chaperone guy is showing us through. I unzip the drum case. I take out the league championship trophy that he'd been going like that for. It's glistening silver, all polished for the night, dangling in green and white ribbons. I chapped the window. He turned round and I went, "Get it right up, you." And I held it up like that. I held up the championship trophy, and he kind of mimed through the glass, something like. And he walked round, and of course, I'm like a kid at Christmas. Nothing could have doused my enthusiasm. My adrenaline was pumping 1,000,000%. He walked round and he said, "How did you get that?" And I said, "We're doing a Celtic gig down here and we're in here and they're looking after the trophy for us." I says, "Do you want to hold it?" And he wouldn't touch it, right? And he said to me, he was at great pains. He was the Rangers captain at the time. He was in the game they did that with. He was at great pains to point out that he was running to the government stand to say, "Raise the roof, raise the roof." Now, whether he was or whether he wasn't, the bottom line is this day I'm on cloud nine. I'm not believing any of this, and I'm going, "I so you did, so you did. Look at this, look at this." And I've got to say, it was an absolute magical moment for a fan to be in that position after he ran away to the government stand going like that.
But there you go. There's Gough, right? A hero at Ibrox. And we've spoke about the Grants, the McStays, the Tommy Bones, all heroes. As I know, local heroes at Celtic. Matt, do you think that we get too attached through green and white eyes to some players, and we get blurred? Because and why I bring it up is because like Kyogo was great for us. We loved him, right? But when Maeda was selected for the World Cup in Qatar, the only Celtic player from all the Japanese players we had at the time, and he was also always selected for each squad, led the line for Japan in Qatar in the World Cup, was always on the team sheet, and our eyebrows were raised because we were going, how is this guy getting in ahead of Kyogo? But it took Kyogo to remove himself from Celtic for us to see why he is so important to the international team.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all down to quality, isn't it? You just can't deny quality. When there's quality and skill there, they'll play in international teams and they'll do very well and they'll play at big clubs. It's all down to a player's quality.
Yeah, I think because the amount of conversations I had about like Maeda v Kyogo, and now, and I have to say, some of them people are really eating their words now. And I know I'm going on a bit on the podcast with Maeda, but I've just been so impressed with him. And even last Saturday night, he was in the airport as we were traveling home, and so was Vickers. They were in the same flight, but I don't think they knew they were on the same flight. They were on a flight to Luton. I think Vickers was with his partner, and they probably have instead of a gaff down there from maybe his time at Tottenham.
Was this after the Rangers game?
After the game,
no, at the Hearts game.
Sorry, the Hearts game. A friend of mine had his kids with him, right? Now, I've been in the airport when players have had no interest in posing for a picture with the kids. I remember having a run in with one or two. They were heading on their Christmas party. The full team was there, and they were heading down to London. That's a good few years ago. And I did remark to them, this means a lot to these kids, and you're hiding from them, But no messing with Maeda or Vickers. They were fucking brilliant with the kids, man. Brilliant with the kids. And you know what? That just sums that to me is, what the old Celtic players, of yesteryear were, when they used to go to supporters functions on a Saturday. This was just like, it made those kids' day, they'll remember that, they're having a picture with them or getting an autograph, and Maeda and Vickers representing Celtic on the pitch and off the pitch, and I think that's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think there's any excuse for any player to walk by a kid who walks up with a pen and a bit of paper asking for an autograph, or nowadays it's a selfie on a phone. I don't think, unless the guy's, with his partner, and he's rushing to catch a plane, and he's pulling kids along the airport. That's a bit different. But if somebody's walking through, and they're waiting on a flight, and whether it's on the same flight as you or not, or in that airport lounge, they have to know that that's the price of fame. And, I think that keeps you very grounded, that you always relate to the supporters. You have to relate to the supporters. And, I don't like hearing stories about players walking past young kids with pens and bits of paper. There's a thing came up on Facebook the other day for me. My youngest son was 24 on Tuesday, Monday, which was March the 31st. And a picture came up of him when he was 10, and he was sitting on the barrier at Celtic Park outside the front door, the green barrier. He's round a wee bit near the front door. And he had a piece of paper in his hand and a pen like that. And, Facebook just throw these pictures up, and, then and then now. And I'm thinking, there he is at 10. He's now a young man with a beard and, girlfriend, and he's doing well in his job. And, there he is at 10 years of age, sitting outside Celtic Park with a pen and a scrap of paper, like I used to do, and probably you used to do as well. And like tens of thousands of wee boys and girls now do, standing waiting to meet their heroes. It was, I can still remember standing out Celtic Park with my dad and getting Billy McNeill's autograph, and then I got to know Billy when I was an adult, and I never ever actually reconciled myself with the fact that I actually knew him personally. I always kept him up there as an icon. I'm thinking, how can I ever be friends with an icon? This guy's a Celtic icon. With Johnstone, Billy McNeill, these guys are solid Celtic icons. I never ever got to meet Johnstone, but meeting Billy and getting friendly with him. And I remember during the Celts for Change time, Billy used to have a Sunday morning column in one of the Scottish tabloids. And he spoke about Celts for Change. And he spoke about how these guys were solid Celtic fans, and how what they were doing to try and get rid of the old board was for the good of the club, for the good of Celtic. A bit short-term pain for, much longer gain, which has been proved. Look at his 43 trophies, I think, since the takeover in 1994. Unbelievable. Anyway, Billy had said in his newspaper column how much these guys were committed to Celtic. And I'd never actually met Billy before, but he had known of people in our, the five guys in Celtic for Change. Anyway, the pub in Torresdale Street called McNeill's. And I went in that night and thanked him. And we stayed and we had a wee lock-in. And it's him and I having a couple of drinks. And I couldn't believe I'm standing in a pub with Billy McNeill having pints. He wasn't pints, he was driving. Now, no matter how pally you think we are, in my mind, I will always regard these people as icons first. And I'm just glad I'm friends with them. But, don't ever think he's your mate, because you can't have a mate that's an icon, in my opinion, because I'm not at that level. So I want to stay at fan level, and I want to always remember him for what he is. And on that very point, when we finished about 1:30 in the morning, so I say Billy was not behind bar, he wasn't drinking. I had a few beers. He pulled the shutters down and he says, where do you live? And I said, Shawlands. And he was staying further up, Newton Mearns, Newlands way. So he was literally driving by where I lived. And he said, I'll give you a run up the road. You're going to think this is really daft at 4:30 in the morning. But I couldn't take a lift off Billy McNeill. I wanted to walk up the road, and I wanted to absorb what had just happened in the 3 hours previous. I didn't let Billy McNeill drive me home. And that might sound really daft, but I just wanted to keep that separation, that I'm the fan and he's the icon, if that makes sense.
And what an icon he was. I think Billy was manager when I attended my first game, and you talk about autographs. I was 16, I think, and I got Mick McCarthy's autograph. Mick was the centre spread in the program, and he signed the program, and I still have it. Obviously, Mick was a big. He'd had a big summer with the Republic of Ireland as well in Germany. So Mick was both. He was both a Celtic player and an Ireland player, which meant a lot to a 16-year-old
Uh-huh.
at his first game. But like you mentioned, Billy was he was so approachable. You know, he was like, when they talk about ambassadors of the club, which he was an ambassador from the first day he walked into Celtic Park till the day he died. He was just a giant of a man. I was lucky enough. I picked him up in Dublin Airport. He came over for a weekend to do a few. He done a dinner and a lunch with us, him and Tommy Gemmell. And when like when you have someone in your car for an hour who who is such, as you say, an icon, you know, it was a pleasure to be stuck in Friday traffic. I'll tell you that much. But
Mhm.
another before we wrap up, Matt, another because it's a while since we had a chat. Um, another ex-Celtic player has passed away, and another gentleman who was ever present at supporters functions and a regular at the Las Vegas convention. You know, he's of a vintage which I didn't see playing, but I suppose the pleasure of having a beer with him and chatting to him on one or two occasions. Evan Williams.
Yeah. Yeah, Evan, I remember Evan used to, in nighttime games, get mud off the pitch and rub it in there to stop the reflection from the floodlights on his eyes. You see pictures of him with he'd mud in there. And, Evan played in the 1970 European Cup final in Milan. And, yeah, it's, I look at the age of everybody. And I just think, sometimes we take life for granted that we're here and we think we're always going to be here, but we're not always going to be here. And our heroes and icons and legends are not always going to be here. And I look at the age of some of the Lisbon boys now, and I'm just thankful that we have them here with us today. You know, Evans sadly passed, and Charlie Gallagher, before him. Uh,
Bertie.
and I just think we should never take it for granted that we have these older boys still around us. John Clark, Willie Wallace, Jim Craig, Bobby Lennox, John Fallon. That's the five surviving members. John, as everybody knows, John Fallon has had his health issues in the last year or so, but it's good to see him back. But it's so easy in life to take things for granted. It really is, no matter what it is. And in this case, with these lines, we've still got them here, and long may that continue.
Yeah, Matt. I spoke to John during the week. I invited him I do a charity dinner every year for the Kano. Peter Grant is actually our guest speaker this year, but I invited John, and he's hoping to get along.
Thanks for the invite.
Well, Matt, you're more than welcome to come if you want. Um,
Come if you want.
I thought you might be in Spain or doing an interview with Chris Sutton and Graces or something, or editing your fanzine. Well, you're more than welcome, Matt. You're more than welcome.
Got you there, didn't I?
No, you didn't. You're more than welcome. I've always got a spare.
Your face is going pure red there.
That's my suntan from Thailand.
Anyway, carry on.
Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure. We go to Perth this week. Thankfully, a better away allocation than previous times, and some of the grounds now the allocation is getting so tight. So hopefully we take another step towards another league title, and it's a dress rehearsal also for the cup. It's great to have you back, Matt, and it's the podcast has been sporadic because of two games a week, basically. You know, the midweek game.
You're all over the world in Thailand and
Yeah, well, yeah. I do like. I have a passport. I do like to use it. But
you,
we're
did
back
you
now,
take your
one game a week, so maybe we can catch up every couple of weeks for a chat if that suits.
absolutely always a pleasure, Andrew, talking to you. Absolutely. Just a quick one on the away allocations you touched on there. St Johnstone's shown a bit of a sense, a provincial team who need money. And, my opinion is that for every away ground that we go to, if away fans have exhausted the amount of tickets that are made available to them, and there's no more home fans wanting in to watch their team, then they should maybe hopefully reorganise a bit of the seating arrangements and let Celtic fans in and any other fans in it come, because football is about big crowds. Some people down south must look at some of the games up here and see empty seats all over the place. Wherever Celtic go in Scotland, there is no need for an empty seat. And whatever empty seat there is at any Premier League ground in Scotland, we can fill it.
100%.
Smaller clubs will talk from time to time about they don't have the resources, and the Glasgow clubs, and the money, this, that, next thing. I'll never understand how somebody is standing outside a football ground with pound notes to pay that club to get in, and their seats empty. I mean, if you were running a cinema business and people were standing outside with money to get in, and you've got empty seats inside, people would think you're insane. If you want to run your club, you need money. Money is what makes football clubs stay afloat. Well, there's one club that never stayed afloat in 2012. Right enough.
They wouldn't pay their majesty their taxes.
So all that stuff still going on. Is it not His Majesty now?
Oh, it's His Majesty, but at the time it was their Majesty. It'll always be their Majesty. It'll be never my Majesty. I'm lucky enough. I'm a citizen. I live in the Republic.
Yeah, no, and I was in Dublin during the week. I was in Dublin on Tuesday, and it is so refreshing to be walking down the street and seeing the Irish flag flying instead of what we had used to hear, the Union Jack. And the Union Jack to me has always been a very aggressive flag. I find the whole design of that flag very aggressive. And when you're in Ireland, various buildings, and there was street corners. I walked from the city centre up to Glasnevin Cemetery, and I was walking up the road, and right in the middle of the road there was a huge flagpole for no particular reason. It was quite a windy day, and the Irish flag was just fluttering away. Of course, it's on the building at the GPO on O'Connell Street. And yeah, it's a lovely country, Ireland. Scotland's a lovely country as well, but we have the added interference of Celtic are not liked in a lot of quarters. That's the problem. Yeah. But we're here, and as Tommy Burns said, we're always here.
He did indeed, and we are, Matt. And indeed, we'll get chatting about Tommy Bones again, because I think there's a campaign to make him a saint. He's been a saint and a saviour to us on the football field, and in the dugout. But that's for another podcast. Matt, thank you very much for taking the time to chat to me.
Very welcome, Andrew. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Well, you might speak to me next Saturday, because you're invited now to the dinner at the number 10.
Better go get myself a suit then.
Steady on. I don't want to put you at any expense. Thank you, Matt. Well, that's a wrap, folks. Thanks very much to Matt, as always, for coming onto the podcast and talking all things Celtic. A die-hard Celtics are, Matt. I always enjoy chatting to him. Big shout out to Tony Ratton and the Bhoys in Sunderland for sponsoring this podcast. And if you would like to sponsor a podcast, you can email us at celticfanzine.com or contact us through our social media. And you'll also get us on TikTok these days. So we have to do a bit of some video stuff. So you'll catch us on TikTok as well now as Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and X, or Twitter as it used to be known. Visit our website, folks. You'll get our latest blogs on our travels around following Celtic. You'll also get info on our upcoming events. Our next one is next Saturday with Peter Grant and Paul Sheridan in aid of the Cana Foundation. We have a dinner in the number 10 hotel on the south side of Glasgow, and there is a handful of tickets left for that. Just a reminder, they're 45 quid each, and we have one full table if anyone wants to take a table. So give us a shout. You can message us on that if you're interested in coming to that. Also on the website, folks, you'll find our online shop where you can buy the latest issue of the Fanzine, which we hope will be out for the Kilmarnock game. And as always, you can pre-order a copy or subscribe. You'll also find our T-shirts, badges, scarves, and bits and pieces on our online shop on the website, CelticFanzine.com. And if you're in McDermott Park on Sunday, hopefully we'll bump into a few familiar faces. As I said earlier on, the allocation is a little better. Tip the hat to St. Johnstone. So we'll have an early bus up, maybe have a can or two, and we're over Saturday evening, so we might have one or two in Glasgow before then, and hopefully we might see a few years out. But it will be an early one because we're getting old and we will be in bed before Cinderella. So, folks, as I said, next weekend, big weekend for us as well. Fanzine will be out and our gala dinner will be on. And also on the website, folks, if you want to subscribe to our newsletter, you'll get a match day e-zine, which we send out to anyone who subscribes. That's free of charge. Check out all the podcasts on Apple, Spotify, whatever your preferred platform is. And you can also get all the podcasts on our little YouTube channel, Celtic Fanzine TV. So, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on that and like if you enjoy the podcast, and you'll never miss one. So, all that's left to say is enjoy the weekend. And if you're in my hometown of Drogheda, get yourself to the Crescent Concert Hall, where Ricky Tompkinson of, I suppose, Brookside and the Royal Family fame will be doing a live show. It should be magnificent to hear about his life story. I read his book. It's excellent, very honest, a big union man before he became an actor, and went to prison for his beliefs. So it could be a brilliant night. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss it because I'll be in Glasgow, getting some much needed beauty sleep for the big game on Sunday. So, folks, have a great weekend and tune in next week when we have another guest to chat all things Celtic.